why these bills have not been moved. I mean, I know I believe the lease house for 3 passed on a party line vote in the House. I'm not sure, I don't recall the vote on 9, but clearly there was some Republican concern about these, and maybe what they are and how we can get addressed.
No. I've asked, talked to Senator Kerry a number of times. And look, I understand that they've got concerns with House Bill 3. I know that they're going to, at some point, assuming something comes back over to the House, it'll be different than what House Bill 3 is. And I'm more than willing to allow them to mess around with it and bring something back over. But there's no consistent message about what their concerns are, at least that's been expressed to me. I want to just act. I want to build back over to it and allow us to either take it up in full or go to conference and negotiate something, negotiate some compromise. But the fact that they're doing nothing right now, that's the big problem. You know, if they took House Bill 3 and just did servicing and servicing regulations and sent that back over to us just that way, then at least it gives us something to talk about and negotiate with in the conference. But we're getting nothing from them.
What I've heard from Republicans is basically that they feel that the foreclosure problem isn't due to lack of regulation or servicing and that sort of thing. The main causes are health problems, divorce, and job loss, and they feel like they should approach things from that way. So I just want to get your take on that.
Anyone else want to jump in? Look, I think job loss, health problems, and divorce are a cause for foreclosures. They always have been. But there's this whole structural problem in the mortgage lending industry. We've got investors who own mortgages. These things were sold off to investors who then hired mortgage loan servicers to deal with the mortgage. The contradiction is that the servicers' motivation basically is to bring a foreclosure action because they have to front, when you get behind your mortgage payment, they have to front that money to the investor. The only way they get that back is if they bring a foreclosure action. That's how they recoup their losses. That's not in the investor's interest. It's not in the community's interest. It's not in the homeowner's interest. But it is in the loan servicer's interest. So part of the reason that this is so important right now is that with the federal money, there's new incentives to minimize that kind of chaotic model that exists in the industry that allows servicers more dollars to write down mortgages, write down principal, and it gives us an opportunity to take advantage of the federal dollars.
I can say something about that. You know, this should not be a partisan issue by any means. And in fact, when the Obama administration first announced which states would participate in the federal program, it was a bipartisan effort on the part of both Sherrod Brown, Senator Voinovich, as well as 13 members of the Ohio delegation, both Democrats and Republicans, that stood up and said, why not prevent unnecessary foreclosures? Why not use these resources in Ohio, one of the epicenters of the foreclosure crisis, to prevent unnecessary foreclosures? That's all we're talking about here. We're not going to solve all foreclosures. 90,000 foreclosures last year. I mean, we're not going to get rid of all of those. Anything we do through the public sector is not going to stop all foreclosures. But we can stop unnecessary foreclosures by pushing servicers to do what they should do, which is negotiate in good faith with homeowners on loan modifications and other workouts, with the help of the courts through mediation, with the help of counselors in the field. And I think it does require, servicers are one of the most unregulated entities of the mortgage market. I mean, every other aspect of the mortgage market is regulated. Servicers are not. So putting some rules of the game in place that they have to follow is only common sense. It's been done by a number of other states. So Ohio's not, pioneering the trail here. And it shouldn't be done on a partisan basis. People should be able to come together, people of goodwill that want to prevent unnecessary foreclosures, regardless of their cause. And I know the industry likes to talk about health issues. Maybe that's why we need health care reform. Or unemployment or other things. they cause foreclosures. All of those things do. But reckless lending on the part of the industry was a major driver of our foreclosure problem for many years. More recently, the recession and the bad economy have become more dominant reasons for why we see the foreclosure crisis. But this isn't a debate about why this happened. This is a debate about should we prevent unnecessary foreclosures going forward. And certainly we should, and all people of goodwill can agree to that.
Bill Fay, setting up.
I was just going to respond that House Bill 9 is a little bit different too, in the fact that you're talking about people who through no fault of their own are suffering as a result of this. So people who are paying their bills all the time, who are current, are being impacted and dramatically because the numbers are, this is a third of the foreclosures. So they're the innocent folks in this whole process. So it's I think a separate issue for them.
Shouldn't given that the secondary market for mortgage loans spans state lines and international lines as well, shouldn't it be really more federal attempt to regulate loan services?
I don't think so. I mean, most of the independent elements of the mortgage industry, whether they be brokers that originate loans or non-bank lenders that originated most of the loans we're dealing with today, they're regulated at the state level. They always have been, they continue to be. There's minimal federal regulation that's applied. It's the Department of Commerce that regulates those elements of the industry, and they should regulate this element as well.
Bill Fay, setting aside the issue of the renters, we were told yesterday that the $172 million for Ohio from the feds, it can be used for counseling, and it could also be used to actually virtually just hand homeowners money to help them get what would amount to a lower interest rate or buying down the principal or whatever. So knowing that those two things could be bought with the federal money, why isn't that enough on its own why do we need this moratorium and so forth on top of that? Because it would seem that the $172 million would give counseling and actual money in people's pockets to help them keep their homes.
Well, I'm glad you heard that it could be used for counseling. I saw nothing in the regulations that were put out yesterday that mentioned counseling being an eligible use of those funds. I hope it can be. But regardless, that's a one-time shot of money, even if it can be used for counseling. The other aspects that it would be used for would be loans to homeowners, right? Or incentives to servicers to modify loans. That very much complements, let's make sure that they're taking full advantage of that. You know, so if a deal isn't struck before the foreclosure's filed and goes to court, well then mediation could be a step in that process. And how are homeowners to find out about this unless counseling efforts are in fact beefed up? And we're not going to get out of this with one small infusion of federal assistance. It's going to be an ongoing problem. We've had record levels for 14 years, and it's not going away anytime soon. And I do know that from talking to Republican members in the Senate, that the mediation or the moratorium issue is a hot issue. I haven't found any of the Republicans that actually support that provision that's in House Bill 3. And my view is we don't necessarily need a moratorium to have a good foreclosure prevention bill. And that's, I think, what Representative Foley is referencing. If you don't like exactly what the House Democrats did, well, let's come up with a viable plan B and negotiate it out. We're running out of time. We don't have a